Welcome back to the Road to Great Health podcast, where we discuss natural solutions to today's worst health problems. I'm Dr. Kevin Lenderman from Dr. Kevin's Wellness Clinic in South Louisiana, and I'm joined by the one and only Dr. Rob DeMartino out of Las Vegas. Doc, what's up today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm feeling a little underdressed, but that's okay. You look good.
How you like that today, huh? No, I don't do this in August in South Louisiana because of the humidity. It's scrubs only.
Yeah.
But
it scrubs
it's
only
a little
for me
colder
in Vegas.
here. Yeah, it's always hot there.
It's always hot here.
Well, today's topic, we wanted to get into some blood work markers. And it's something that really needs to be discussed because, you know, people don't understand the importance of their data, right? Like, in other words, you know, if you have somebody that owns a business and you start asking them, well, what's more important, your health or your business? Oh, well, my health is. Or you ask somebody, what's more important, your bank account or your health? They'll say, oh, well, my health is. But when you ask them about their business, they know their income, their expenses, their employees, their taxes. They know their bills coming out each month. But then when you go, well, what's your insulin? I don't know. Well, what's your ferritin? I don't know. So you got all the stats about the money, but you don't have all the stats about your health, and that's not okay.
Yeah, and in today's day and age where I know all my patients take my stuff and they put it into ChatGPT or whatever AI, and they come back like, hey, it said exactly what you said. You know, there just needs to be really good explanation of these things, but the data is what moves what you do, right? It determines how you do things, and we're spoiled because we can get a lot of data now.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, we really love the American healthcare system for the data they offer. They don't run it, but the data that they have available is actually remarkable. And, you know, patients ask us all the time, well, why won't my doctor run those things for me? And people don't really realize the way the medical system works. You know, they're kind of like, well, it's nothing off my doctor's problem. He's not going to have any problem. I'm asking him to run it. My insurance covers it. Why would he run it? What people don't understand is it's the system that they work in. So every single action a doctor takes has a code, and those codes go into a big algorithm, and doctors are judged if they fall outside of what's considered standard. And those standards are very narrow. So doctors are punished for curiosity. And these standards, if you fall outside of those standards too often, you start getting audited. Your reimbursement starts getting lowered. So instead of making 30% per service, you're making 28%. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're billing tens of thousands of services, you know, that's their boat payment. And so it makes a big difference to them. Well, here's the thing. Dr. Rob and I don't work for Blue Cross or United or Medicare. We work for one person, and that's our patient.
And it's the truth, because, I mean, they have the doctors by the throat, because at the end of the day, they can say, well, we'll kick you off you don't play by our rules, we'll kick you off the plan. And if they kick you off the plan, now all of a sudden you can't see those patients anymore. Obviously your reimbursements go down pretty significantly. And it came to a head years ago. I know it did for me. I know it did for you as well, too, where I was like, I have to make a choice. I either do what's right for my patient, or I let a third party that is not interested in their health, that is not their primary goal, decide what they get. And it's you know, as a doctor, it's scary to go outside of that, because, I mean, and everyone thinks that I don't take insurance.
Right.
And I'm like, no. They don't cover a lot of the stuff that we do. Half of the blood work that I do, they would deny anyways. I mean, they used to call me and fight with me I would fight on the phone with them all the time. Why did you run this? Why did you run that? I'm like, and then the best part was it came back out of range on their labs. And I'm like, well, the reason I ran it was because it was the problem, and I proved it. But it's just not how it works. And again, they do it to cripple the system, so that if they can cripple your ability to diagnose, then they can cripple your ability to bill for services. And they're just trying to lengthen that time. So if you can't give the patient a proper diagnosis, you can't bill for that, you can't bill for the services, and the insurance makes money hand over fist.
Right, exactly. And it's gotten to be where, you know, in order to make a medical practice work, you need a waiting room full of patients, and you have 5 minutes. You have to diagnose it, bill it, code it, prescribe it, and go on to the next patient, because their rates are already cut so dramatically, it's hard to run a medical practice if you don't do it that way. And so I'm just so glad we're not part of that whole system. And we can do what our patients need as much as they need when they need it. And it's just such an awesome way to practice. I mean, I put my head down on the pillow at night knowing that I did every single test possible to figure out this patient's problem. And we don't always figure it out, but the vast majority of time we can find it.
Yeah, nothing's 100%, but yeah.
Exactly. I'm so thankful for this blood panel that you created for us, Doc, because, when you run, and by the way, our blood work it's like 10 or 12 pages of stuff, right? And so when you lay all of that out in front of you, answers just start popping out at you like, well, yes, that's off and that connects to this. And it's just a true picture of health in a way that patients have never seen before.
Yeah, it's fun to go over it with people because if you do a good job and you can actually explain the steps, you can just kind of see them getting it. Like, oh, that relates to that, and then why did that happen? Okay, that's a cool question. Here's the answer to that question on the next page, and then you just start building this narrative of a story of, hey, look, this is what's kind of going wrong in your body, and then the good news is that we know what's wrong. We can find out why it's happening, which leads you to the good stuff of how do you fix it. Right? If you just stop at what's wrong, okay, you have this diagnosis, that's great, but then you're missing out on the good stuff, which is why did that go down, and how do you get to the bottom lines of it? But yeah, when you can start picking apart, and that's why you get the people who say, I feel terrible, but they ran all the blood work and they said my blood work looks great. No, they just ran what your insurance company would approve, and it's bare bones nothing.
Same page and a half.
Yeah, it is a page and a half. It's bare bones nothing. It barely gives you any information. And even a lot of times I've had patients bring me in and they say, oh, they said my blood work looks fine. And then I look at it and I'm like, this looks terrible. And half of the time it's because those reference ranges, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but those reference ranges aren't correct either. So you have to really read this with a fine-tooth comb. And a lot of times people bring me stuff and I'll find problems just off of that. Then when we really dig deep, you start getting to the deep answers, which brings you to solutions.
Yeah, even on the blood work they do run, which like you said is minimal, their ranges are ridiculous sometimes. With Dr. Rob's blood panel, our ranges are optimal. What do you have to do to be a healthy person, not just alive? We don't want your blood work to look like you're alive. We want it to look like you're a healthy, optimally functioning individual. And so a lot of these medical ranges are just crazy, too broad.
Yeah. A lot of the times, remember, what blood work is looking for is the expression of disease. Right, so we're not really interested in the expression of disease in totality. We're interested in how to restore health. So in these large ranges, you could have somebody, here's the whole range. They're like right here, and they're like, well, you're in range. Yeah, but then when you look at a handful of them and they're going like this, I'm like, when's it going to be? The next one or the one after that where you're out of range? We could deal with that now, or we can wait till it's a catastrophic problem. Right, we're trying to reinstall health where they're just saying, hey, look, this is acceptable. You may be functionally sick in these ranges, but it's not catastrophic enough for the medical system to then jump in and start helping.
Right. And there's so much data that can be gleaned if you just look. One of the things I talk about all the time is we just keep asking the question of why. Mm-hmm. Basically, why is that there? Well, what caused that? Why did that happen? Until we get to the final why, and then we can address it.
Well, it's like you said, it's almost like childlike curiosity. Right, like when your kids are little, they're like, "Well, why should we do that?" Well, like, why? Why? And then finally, like, "Oh my God, it's just the way it is. Just go with it." Right? When you're a parent,
because I said so.
When you're a parent and you reach that level, but it is that same ideology of that kind of curiosity of why. Why would that happen? Okay, what's the next step? Lots of times, patients bring me in blood work, and I'll look at it and say, "What did they say about this?" And they say, "Well, some people are just like that," which is like nails on a chalkboard to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, they're like that if there's another problem. Like, I don't know what that is because I have to test that. But the next step would be figure out why those numbers are off, not just say, well, some people's bodies are like that. You see that a lot with the anemia patterns. Well, some people are like that. Yeah, if they're anemic. And then you have to figure out why they're anemic. I mean, don't you think having oxygen in your body is a good thing? Right? Your body kind of likes oxygen. So, it's amazing how much stuff you can find.
It really is. And so, Doc, my plan today is I'm just going to rapid fire some blood work markers at you. And I want you to kind of explain, the importance of them and what we do and why. And the first one I wanted to go through is insulin and leptin. Talk to us about insulin and leptin and the importance of that. Because, by the way, we've got millions of diabetics out there that are so worried about their glucose and their A1C, and you go, well, what is your insulin level? I don't know. Well, diabetes is a disease of insulin, and they've never tested your insulin? And then you have insulin resistance and leptin sensitivity. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, so, forever it was talked about that diabetes was a blood sugar problem, right? And now they've kind of recategorized it as it's an insulin problem. And insulin is the hormone that allows you to keep your blood sugar regulated. So it would make sense that if we're looking at somebody's blood sugar, we want to know how much insulin they need to put out in order to keep that blood sugar regular. Because what will happen a lot of the times is the blood sugar is going to be the last thing to go out of range. But you can see their insulin starting to creep up, and their insulin starting to creep up. So now what's happening is they may need 2, 3, 4, 5 times the amount of insulin to keep their blood sugar normal, right? That would be like saying, I could have one person run my front desk, but she's on Facebook all day, so I have to have 6 people run my front desk. Can I do that? Yeah, but my overhead's going to go way high, and it's not sustainable, right? It's not efficient.
Right.
So what you're looking for is the efficiency between some of these problems happening or not. And I will tell you, in 25 years or whatever it is I've been doing this, I think on a handful of times I've had somebody actually bring me in their fasting insulin levels.
Yeah.
Right? And make no mistake, people kind of don't get freaked out about diabetes anymore because everybody has it, right? Like you said, so many people are diagnosed with it. So I have people tell me, well, I have normal diabetes. I don't know what normal diabetes is, but it's it's just that everyone has it. But the reality of the situation is they're not looking at the insulin factors to figure out why everyone has these types of problems. And that's what leads to those issues. And then furthermore, on top of that, the leptin marker, leptin is the hormone that governs insulin. So leptin's insulin's boss. And that's an even more important marker. Now, if you look up leptin, and it is correct, it will basically talk about if your leptin levels are incorrect, you will gain weight. Right? You will go, all of the research is around obesity. But what leptin does is it basically goes between your cells and their ability individually to make energy. And then it tells the brain, the CEO of that company, say, okay, this is how much money we've made. This is all the financial stats you said earlier. This is where we are. This is how much money we came in. This is how much money we're looking at bringing in. Leptin is basically the energy accountant that's telling the brain what's happening inside the body. And if we lose that signal, if you have your debit card and you don't know if you have no money in there or $1 million in there, you're not going to give it to somebody and have it, decline. So leptin basically keeps our body energetically in check to say, hey, this is what we need to have happen. This is where we are. If it doesn't know what to do, it does nothing and it stores. And that's why we gain weight. People don't get freaked out about diabetes anymore. But at the end of the day, all of the diabetic complications, brain injuries, Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative disorders, cancers, kidney disease, all of the big bad stuff that we get because of diabetes, it's still the leading cause of blindness in the United States. It's still diabetes. Right. All of that stuff comes because insulin isn't correct, and they don't even check insulin, and they don't even know what leptin is. Now, leptin will play a role in many other diseases as well too, but leptin is probably your top 3 to 4 hormones of most important inside your body, and most people have never even heard of it, especially doctors.
Yeah. And so the way you can think about this is, let's say you have a restaurant. Leptin is the owner, insulin is the manager, and the glucose and A1C is like the employees. So to try to treat someone's blood sugar, their glucose, that's like if you're at a restaurant and you complain to the busboy. Like, he's the lowest guy there. You're not going to go give a complaint to the busboy. He can't fix your problem. You want the owner or the manager, and you want to address your problems to them, and the busboy will take care of himself. And that's really the way these hormonal pathways, whenever it comes to energy regulation, not just blood sugar, but energy regulation, really work. Did I say that right, Doc?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to talk to a decision maker, right? You'll kill yourself trying to micromanage employees. But 9 times, if not more than that, out of 10, the problem is with ownership. The manager's not doing a good job, the owner's not doing a good job, and the employees are doing the best that they can. But if nobody tells them when to show up, if nobody tells them what to do, if nobody trains them, if nobody's keeping eyes on them, they're going to fail. They may be the best employees in the world, but if their manager stinks, they're going to fail. So you have to get to these upper, and that's leverage. Leverage in health is so important because if you can hit those high leverage points, it makes the job significantly easier to do. And that's what brings efficiency to your body.
Yeah, absolutely. I was having a consultation with a diabetic patient yesterday, and he had one of those alarms on his phone with his automatic glucose meter on his arm.
Yeah.
And in a 1 hour consultation, it went off an alarm and he was at 300. And then, so he turned it off and we were talking for a while, and then it went off because it was below 50, all within a 1 hour period. He had never had his leptin tested, never had his insulin tested. It was just, when it's low, take sugar pills. And when it's high, pump you full of insulin. And it's like, that's such a downstream way of looking at it.
It's such the perfect example of a loss of control. Right, that's purely
Right.
what that is. The control is lost. If it's always high, it's one thing, but high to low in these swings, these are loss of control issues, right? And that has to be
Right.
above stream. You're never going to be able to balance that, and if you do, you're going to spend the rest of your life doing it.
Chasing your tail.
Yep.
And he goes, yes, I feel like I'm chasing my tail.
Yep.
That's basically what, chasing your glucose number is doing for you. And the thing about leptin too is we're talking about in reference to like blood sugar and diabetes, but leptin does so much more than that. We may have a whole show on leptin one day on just how deep that actually goes into all your hormonal pathways and your energy pathways and all of that. All right, Doc, I got another one for you. Ferritin.
Ooh, ferritin. Okay, so ferritin is basically a storage form of iron. So iron is a necessity for human beings. We need iron for a bunch of different functions. Its main one is it allows you to hold oxygen in your red blood cells and in different parts of your body where it needs to be. It's very important in your mitochondria. So when we see ferritin is an iron, it's a type of protein that binds iron. But for when there's some reason that somebody cannot use oxygen effectively, their mitochondria are damaged, they have anemia, whatever the case may be. This was a big deal during COVID. If there's free oxygen that their body can't use, which is going to damage them, that iron has no purpose and will spill into their system, and the body will start binding up extra iron. But extra iron is toxic to humans.
Yeah.
It creates inflammation that we can't handle. It creates specific types of free radicals, they call them hydroxyl radicals, and they will ravage and do massive damage to your system if that goes completely unchecked. Now, that was why it was such a big deal with COVID, because COVID was destroying the hemoglobin in your red blood cells. That's where your oxygen goes. So if the oxygen's destroyed and the hemoglobin's destroyed, then the iron has no purpose and it would fall out of the red blood cell and go into your blood system, and then we would have to be able to check that. If their ferritin got high enough, it was the most determinative marker of whether or not they would die of COVID, because we could tell how much oxygen damage. I cannot tell you. So ferritin was a thing before. Now ferritin will be damaged by EMFs. Right, so the more electromagnetic fields that you're exposed to, cell phones, Wi-Fi's, towers, all those different types of things, your ferritin level will go higher. Sunlight being deficient is a great reason why ferritin levels will go higher, because we need sun in order to be able to absorb that iron. But at the end of the day, I cannot tell you how much this has changed, and you've seen it over 20 years of, we used to find it being off in people. Now all of a sudden, it's like 4 out of 5 labs, their ferritin is elevated.
And it's high.
And it's high, right? And that's another range where they'll let them get up to like 400. It shouldn't be above 80. I mean, even that's high.
Right.
I mean, that's about as high as it could possibly be. And that's what the hematological, they've been fighting this since 2001 to get those levels changed, and they refuse to change the levels. So that is an incredibly important marker, and it can be very dangerous because you can look like you're low in total iron, but your ferritin is high. And I've caught this many times where they'll start giving people iron, and that can kill them. Because now they're not using that iron, they're just storing it, and it just makes this massive amount of inflammation, and it does massive amounts to the body. And the more iron that you have free in your system, the more blue light is toxic to you, and the more EMFs are toxic to you. Because think of it, it's iron, it's a metal. If I put 1 screw in a microwave, that's a bad idea, you're going to get sparks. But what happens if I put 100 screws in there? You're going to get an awful lot of sparking, right? So you may get much more sensitive, and you're not able to use oxygen. This is a bad combination of things for the human body. It's an important marker when you're looking at anemias. It's an important marker when you're looking at post-COVID stuff. And nowadays it's becoming epidemic, where before we would find it, but now it's the norm is to find it and not have it not be there as an issue.
Mm-hmm. Right. And whenever you couple ferritin with liver enzymes, most of the time with medical blood work, they check 2 out of the 3 liver enzymes, but they hardly ever test the GGT enzyme anymore for whatever reason. And I believe I heard you saying that having an abnormal GGT liver enzyme and ferritin together is really bad.
So it is so bad. So if both of those are elevated, if you go for life insurance, they have a scoring system, and each thing that's wrong with you is like a point, and then you get a certain amount of points and you're disqualified. Having GGT elevated as a liver enzyme and having ferritin elevated is enough points to immediately disqualify you from getting life insurance.
Wow.
Just by itself.
Yeah. And they don't ever check these. Like, that's just crazy that they don't look at those specific markers.
It's just they know that your life expectancy will be shorter and you'll be a bad risk investment for them. So, and again, insurance companies know how to play these odds. They're like the sports books in Vegas. They're not guessing, right? They don't get that side because they're guessing. They know the odds and statistics, and you need to know them too, because it's your health and your life on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what about, I know that our inflammation panel that we do, where we check high sensitivity CRP and homocysteine and all of those, I don't remember ever having a patient tell me that anyone checked their inflammation levels. Now, their doctors will tell them they have inflammation. Oh, well, you're just very inflamed. Let me give you some, cortisone or some inflammatories. But do you really know what your inflammation markers are? And I don't remember anyone being able to say, oh, yeah, my CRP is, 3 or whatever. And so it's so important to have that inflammatory panel where we can actually determine their rate and level of inflammation and where they're inflamed.
Yeah, that's the big, actually, of everything, too, that's one of the biggest aspects of it now, because we tend to talk about inflammation as a misnomer, right? We tend to think of it as swelling. Inflammation was always, it turns red, it's hot, it's painful. But inflammation really is a chemical signal, right? So it is a chemical signal. So when a part of your body is damaged, it will release inflammation as a chemical signal. So it can signal, basically, it's your body's way of calling 911 for help, or shooting off a flare to say, hey, I have a problem here and I need someone to come help me. And usually that's your immune system. So there's a lot of different types of inflammation, and we can use that to then say, oh, you have this type of inflammation. That means this part's damaged, and that's the part that we have to repair. Why did that part get damaged? How do we repair it? Think about the other logic of, well, just take an anti-inflammatory. They're just going to give you a broad anti-inflammatory to try to knock that down. But essentially, that's like me saying, I'm in danger and I'm in trouble here, and you cut my phone line and I'm not able to call 911 for help. Now, if you're outside, you have no idea that this part's damaged. I'm in trouble, but you don't hear me screaming and yelling. So it feels better, but you've lost the chemical signal of your body's ability to tell itself what's happening and how to repair itself. So now we don't want too much inflammation, because now if that part's damaging, out of control, it's going to send out a lot of information. That's going to have negative side effects. But all it is the body screaming for help. So measuring the different types of inflammation allows us to figure out where the problem is, why it happened, and again, to the good part, how do you fix it?
How to fix it. Yeah. Right. Exactly right. And then, one of the things about our kidney function test, about GFR, is if you look at the medical blood work, and I don't know why they do it like this, but their labs will come back and it will say greater than 60 as normal. Mm-hmm. But that's still stage 2 kidney dysfunction. Yeah. And so you could be a 61, you could be 1 point from a stage 3 kidney distress, and their labs don't even recognize that. Why is that?
Because, well, really, my guess is there's no intervention for them, even if it is dropping, right? So the only intervention for kidney function, so GFR is basically how good are your kidneys at getting the fluid out of your body, right? That's essentially what it means. And you can almost use that number as a percentage, right? So if it's 60, it's 60% functional. Now, as you go dropping down, once the kidneys fail, that's the only time we have a medical intervention for that. There's no drugs to improve that function. There's no medical procedure to improve that function. We do stuff to improve that function all the time, and we see those numbers come up. Right. But in the conventional medical system, there's nothing to do for that. So they don't bring it up because they're going to wait till you get into a stage 4, and then say, okay, now you got to go on dialysis. But guess what? Once you go on dialysis, you're terminal. You're considered terminally ill. And thankfully, we've been able to turn a lot of patients from that level all the way back up because you can rebuild that function. But there's nothing in the medical system that rebuilds that function. So they're not going to bring it up to you if there's nothing they can do about it, and they're going to wait till it's a catastrophic type of problem. Again, you'd way rather know it's a heck of a lot easier to fix your kidneys when they're not catastrophically bad from our end.
Right.
Stage 5 is you're going to be in for a tussle, but they will just wait until it's really, really bad, where you'd rather wait no earlier and say, okay, what can I do about this versus waiting for it to fail? But that's the difference between preventative and functional med rather than, conventional medicine where we're just taking emergency interventions.
Yeah. I talk to patients all the time, and the way I explain it to whenever it comes to kidneys is I let them know, like, people think if you ask them, what do your kidneys do? They'll say, well, my kidneys make me pee. Your kidney's number one job is to get fluid out of your body. And they go, oh, I'm on a fluid pill. Yes, that is a kidney problem, not a heart problem. The fluid packs around your heart and makes your heart hard to beat. But the reason that fluid is there is because your kidney filtration rate is really bad. And when we check that and we talk to them about that and we get that number better, all of a sudden their body can take that extra fluid, their kidneys can push it out of their system.
Yeah, and even on top of that too, when you can measure the brain hormones that are designed to keep the kidneys working normally, right? It's an upstream thing, because again, kidneys are employees, are going to do what they're told. They do a great job. But you have to look at the whole process. The problem is they look at the blood work and say, okay, great, I have a pill for this. Okay, great, I have a pill for that. They don't get deeper into the intervention. It's just, okay, pill for this, pill for that, pill for this, pill for that, pill for this. And I didn't like that in functional medicine because I don't want to do a vitamin for this, a vitamin for this, a vitamin for this, a vitamin for this. You have to look at the whole picture and say, okay, this whole thing is failing from a 90-foot view. Why? Oh, this is, when we talk about with thyroid, right? This is the problem, and then we're losing you from this point. But you have to know that entire pathway and be able to measure out those pathways and say, okay, here's the pinpointed problem, and here's the solution, what we do for this, and then it'll pretty much domino everything downstream into place.
Right.
But they say, oh, I'll just take a water pill, and that's going to get it out for you. It'll do the work. I mean, that's all dialysis does. It just takes the fluid out for you. It doesn't fix your kidneys, which is why you're still considered terminal, because eventually it's going to get bad enough where even doing that's not enough to help.
Right. And then the last one I have for you today that I wanted to talk about is our thyroid panel. Yeah. Because our thyroid panel that Dr. Rob created is so much more thorough than the medical thyroid panel that they do. They check 2 numbers. And the thyroid panel that he created, I think it's like 10 or 12 markers just for your thyroid. And the reason that that's so important is because your thyroid works like an assembly line, like building a car. People think their thyroid gland just pumps out thyroid hormone and it either works or it doesn't, and it's normal when it doesn't. Your thyroid goes through an assembly line to end up with usable thyroid hormone. Just like when you're building a car, one person puts the wheels on, one person puts the windshield, one person puts the headlights on. And if every time a car rolls off the assembly line, the headlights are wrong, you know what section messed that up and you can work on that. And that's actually very similar to the way your thyroid works. It's like an assembly line. And if you don't know what part of that assembly line is broken down, you really don't know where to go to look at how to resolve that section, right? Did I explain that good?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, this is an insurance thing, right? They will pay for one marker, and if that marker is wrong, the lab knows to reflex to the next marker, because then that's the marker you'll base the amount of medication you give somebody off of. But anything below that first marker, which is TSH, which most people know is for thyroid stimulating hormone, you could 80% of the time you could have a thyroid problem and your TSH could be spanking normal, right, dead smack. And now again, those are another number where it's got a really big range, right? They can be a huge range for thyroid, for TSH markers, and you could be at the very top of that and still have the kind of problems. Or your thyroid could be your pituitary could be virtually non-functional, and they'll say you're totally in range. I find that all the time. But you're right, it is that step-by-step ideology, but a lot of times patients say, well, can you write it down and let me know, and I'll try to have my doctor run it. I'll write it down for you, but I'm going to tell you right now, as sure as I sit here, they're not going to do it for you. Because the insurance company is going to flag them and saying, why are you running all of this? Especially because the only thing you're going to make a decision on is those first 2 markers. So we're not going to pay for the rest of this if it doesn't factor into your decision-making. Now, it factors into our decision-making, because if it's outside of those problems, obviously you got to fix something downstream. But this is purely an insurance company problem, an insurance company game. And they won't run that sort of stuff. And then lots of times, people say, like, well, I want to run it through my insurance. look, even if your doctor does run it for you, they're not going to pay for it. They're going to decline that portion of it, and then they're going to smack you with this big old bill. We just need to know what the data is, what we need to run, how we need to run it. And like you said, I got tired, you got tired. It's just working for the insurance companies and what I got into this for. If a patient needs something, we're going to do it. And they feel like, hey, it's my dime, it's my dollar, I want to pay for it, all I need you to do is order it. But they don't realize that how much power the insurance companies have over the doctors, and they have all the leverage, because if they kick them off, that's an issue. So I'd laugh when the insurance companies call me now and they yell and scream, because I just laugh at them. I'm like, well, you have no power over me, right? You can yell and kick and scream. I took this phone call for fun, just to listen to you kind of squirm a little bit. But I'm gonna do what's right for the patient. We're gonna get the data we need, so we know how to fix this, right? So they're just not gonna look that deep.
Yeah, I had a patient a few years ago that I ran the autoimmune panel that you created, which I think is like 15 different autoimmune diseases. And typically in the medical field, they look for two. They look for lupus and RA. And if you don't have those two, they say, well, you're not autoimmune. Well, what about the other 98 autoimmune diseases that are out there? And so I did your big autoimmune panel that you created, and I found the autoimmune problem, and the insurance still denied it. Because at the time I ordered it, I didn't know that, so it wasn't medically necessary. That was my final straw. It's like, I found the problem, and you're not covering it.
I sat with a guy, and he was like, I'm not autoimmune. And I was like, are you sure? I mean, because this feels autoimmune, it smells autoimmune, it looks autoimmune, like every sense tells you this is autoimmune. He said, no, my doctors really checked me for that. Well, when we dug into that, they checked for two. They checked for lupus, and they checked for rheumatoid. When we ran that panel, he actually broke my office record. He had 17 different antibodies positive. Dude had 17 different autoimmune diseases in one shot. And we're sitting there going, guess what? Not only are you autoimmune, you're one of the most autoimmune people I've ever seen. And he's been for years. I was like 6 or 7 years of him struggling with stuff. They were trying to tell me he had Lou Gehrig's disease. I'm like, you don't have Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yeah.
But he had all these autoimmunes, but they just won't measure it. Now, again, the insurance companies will cover the lupus markers and the rheumatoid markers if they have symptoms to look for that. But like you said, if you're just doing a comprehensive job, looking for somebody, making sure they don't have a problem, or digging into what problem they have outside of what they approve, they say, no, you can't do that. It's not medically necessary. Medically necessary stuff that will improve your health is not considered medically necessary. That is a Medicare statute. If you do things to improve your health, it is not considered medically necessary as far as an insurance company is concerned, which is absurd. But they're crisis insurance. It's like car insurance. Like, they don't pay you to change your oil. They don't pay you to put gas in your car, right? That's considered maintenance. That's on you. They only, if you, God forbid, you get in an accident, they pay for that. It's the same way health insurance is. It's not designed to fix you. It's just designed in case something catastrophically happens. But still, remember, 60% of bankruptcies in the United States happen because of medical. Not because of medical bills.
Yeah. Well, Doc, I sure am glad it was you explaining all that blood work. You're the science guy, and I don't know what I'm doing here. I guess I'm I guess I'm the entertainment guy. Who knows? But anyway, I'm really glad it was you explaining all that. And so, if you're listening out there, and you want to get to the core of why you have lost your health, the program that Dr. Rob developed for us is that we leave no stone unturned. It will be the most thorough evaluation of why your health has failed that you have ever gotten. So if you guys are interested in that, you can look at one of our websites. We'd be happy to talk to you about helping you. Doc, today was a good one, man. Thanks a lot.
Always fun.
All right. See you guys next time.
Have a good one.